up and welcome to this week's BFG review. As always, I want to thank anyone who's watched my previous videos and remind everyone to please like, share, and subscribe because it really does help grow the channel. Now, in honor of its spin-off, Human Resources being released on Netflix. On to this week's show, which is Big Mouth. Created by Andrew Goldberg, Mark Levin, Jennifer Flackett, and Nick Kroll, and starring Nick Kroll as Nick Birch, John Mulaney as Andrew Glauberman, and Jesse Klein as Jesse Glasser, and also starring Jason Mantzoukas, Fred Armisen, Maya Rudolph, Jordan Peele, Jenny Slate, and Ayo Edebiri. Big Mouth follows a group of teenage 7th graders as they navigate their way through puberty with struggles like masturbation, sexual arousal, shame, anxiety, and depression, all in the suburbs of New York City. With them, acting as over-sexualized shoulder angels, are the hormone monsters, Maury, Connie, Rick, and Mona, all who pester the kids with raging hormones. Throughout the series, the kids interact with other people and monsters and personified objects that all offer helpful yet confusing advice in their puberty-filled lives, including, but not limited to, the ghost of Duke Ellington, the shame wizard, a pillow capable of getting pregnant, literal love bugs, Jesse's own vulva, and Jay's Pitbull, featuring Ludacris. So, if you didn't catch it in the summary, this show is literally balls to the wall crazy. To give you an example, here are some things from just the pilot episodes. There's public masturbation, seeing your friend's genitals, penis envy, first kisses, and human-sized penises playing basketball. So yeah, you'll be able to tell real quick if this show is for you or not. And I could tell right away that this show was definitely for me. I absolutely loved Big Mouth when it first premiered. I watched the first season at least 3 times when it first came out. And with each rewatch, I'd catch new jokes or visual gags, so it never really got stale. This show is intensely funny.
Now let's watch McConaughey bang 2 meth heads at a rodeo and try not to think about AIDS. Andrew?
Yeah?
I'm thinking about AIDS.
Hanson, do you remember your horny thrills?
Rick, honey, I can never understand you.
That's why they have subtitles.
Are you the puberty fairy?
The fuck did you just call me?
The puberty fairy?
I mean, sure, I fuck around with dudes, but I'm not a fairy.
If you don't mind gross out humor, because that is where majority of the jokes come from. There are definitely moments and jokes that push the humor a bit too far, even for my taste. But luckily, they're mostly contained to a single season or a couple episodes. The rest of the humor comes from the characters. Just watching them interact and react to each other is hilarious. It's so much fun. The characters are what really make the show. Each has their own personality with their own arcs and issues that they have to deal with. They also interact with the other characters in different and unique ways, really making these characters feel like actual teens and not just caricatures. Nick Birch is the confident straight man that hides his insecurities behind his humor, but genuinely wants to be a good person. Andrew, Nick's best friend, is a slightly neurotic yet extremely depraved teen that can't help but to be turned on by anything and everything. Jessie, the third in the friend trio, is a sarcastic young woman that learns a lot about herself throughout the seasons and throughout her parents' divorce and grows somewhat beyond her original friends. Missy is the upbeat, optimistic nerd that rarely feels shame for being who she is, and that comes from her loving home and her high intelligence. And Jay, at first, appears to be little more than a sex-crazed punchline, but quickly we learn that his extreme personality is just a cry for acceptance that stems from a broken home. And the hormone monsters are probably the best part of the show. Maury and Connie, they are both hilarious in their own right, but they also work wonderfully off each other, and you can tell that there's a history there. There are so many other characters, I couldn't possibly name them all, but some of the other standouts would be Lola, Coach Steve, Matthew, Devin and Devon, and Allie. These characters aren't given the same amount of attention as the main cast, but still each bring their own unique charm and voice to the show. And the show shines even when giving focus to these side characters. And watching these characters pair up with the main characters can create fun little side adventures, like when Jesse and Matthew kind of discover a friendship over their hatred of Valentine's Day, or Jay and Lola's unlikely relationship because they both kind of come from broken, slightly parentless homes. Speaking of, Big Mouth does not shy away from any awkward or sometimes serious topics. It actually embraces them. In the first season alone, they tackle things like toxic relationships, divorce, first periods, consent, slut shaming, and porn addiction, and again, penis envy. I'm actually going to go through each season now and give my quick thoughts on some of the storylines / messages. Like I said, I loved the first season. I watched it a bunch when it came out, and it was a great way to kick off a new series. Season 2 was just as good, if not better. It tackled such topics as like height envy, objectification and slut shaming, body positivity, shame, depression, toxic masculinity. It had a whole episode devoted to Planned Parenthood and all the different services they provide, which I thought was great. A lot of the characters and relationships grow beyond what they were in season 1, and it makes them feel like real people who are growing and changing and not just characters stuck in a show. One of the great new characters, the Shame Wizard, is a great representation of shame, but also you find out that like he doesn't hate the kids, he wants to help them, because a little shame can be good. Like without shame, the kids kind of go a little too far, go almost primitive. Season 3 pushes it even further. We get such topics like body expression, cell phone addiction, incest, female masturbation. There's a whole episode devoted to standardized tests and the stress that stem from that. And you could tell that this series was starting to gain an audience because they were just signed up for 3 more seasons by season 3. This really reflected in the humor. They really push the envelope in a lot of the episodes. Like I said in the beginning, this is where you start to see some of those moments where the humor pushes it a little too far. And then you get season 4, which to me was all around just kind of messy. It's definitely my least favorite season. There's no storyline that runs through the entire season like in previous. They attempt to address some trans issues, but they don't really do much with it. It's in the first couple episodes and then it's just dropped. They introduced a new character akin to the Shame Wizard in season 2 called the Anxiety Mosquito, but they don't really do much with it and it just kind of disappears 2/3 of the way through the season and then comes back at the very end. The gross out humor is pushed way too far in this season, even for me. It just seemed like they were doing it just to do it instead of to enhance the story. Speaking of, a lot of the stories kind of felt repeated and like stuff we addressed. Luckily, season 5, the latest season and potentially the last, was more grounded. There were still some repeat storylines, but they were told in a new way with slightly different jokes. We had other topics like crushes and jealousy. Jessie had her dad dating someone new and having potentially a new sibling. They get in a lot into like toxic anger and hate and what that can do to you. And then like they get very meta at the end with Nick meeting a version of himself, and almost feels kind of like a cap on the show. It's like, where did they go from here? You're not really sure, which is why I think the spinoff Human Resources is coming out. I think it's a new way to still play in this universe without necessarily following the same main characters. Big Mouth actually reminds me a lot of another Netflix show, Sex Education, which tackles many of the same issues in a slightly less perverse and much more grounded manner. Both shows are excellent and can probably help some younger people potentially going through similar issues. In the end, Big Mouth is a raunchy, perverse, completely inappropriate, yet hilarious animated show that tackles real issues teens face in a way that doesn't talk down to its audience. It uses gross out humor and sometimes terrible characters to reduce stigma on many sexual and gender topics. Besides a somewhat shaky 4th season, Big Mouth earns an A- letter grade. So, those are my thoughts on the show. Let me hear your thoughts, as well as your thoughts on the drawing in the comment section down below. Also, if you want to hear me have more in-depth discussions on film and TV, check out I Know You with Derek and Jamie, anywhere you find podcasts. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell icon to be notified anytime I release a new video. Thanks everyone, and have a fantastic day.